Hi, welcome to Observations. I'm host John Walsh. Today's special edition is candidate interview for the special 2021 special election for Mayor of Palm Coast. Today's guest is candidate Bacha. Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Editor John Walsh. I get to meet you in persona.
Thank you.
It's so happy for me because we know your name from the newspaper.
Thank you.
And the most exciting thing about campaigning for mayor is that I get to meet people. So thank you for helping me meet some of the folks out there in Palm Coast.
Thanks for joining us. And we'll dive right in. This one's an easy one. How long have you lived in Palm Coast?
From December of 2014. And I came here particularly because Flagler County was the only county in the state of Florida supporting youth in the arts and in music and offering music lessons twice a week. So I started my first sighting of Palm Coast. You know, Columbus wanted to go to the New World. I wanted to go to the New World of Palm Coast that would be appreciative of youth in music, because that's what I was doing, paid for by the city of Orlando, paid for by the city of Winter Park, and paid for by the city of Lake Mary. So I have worked for cities before in and through music, and that was my directional signal. Palm Coast, Flagler County, they support the arts, they want the youth. That's where I could be in my, okay, you can see I'm not, as one of the younger council members is, I'm not a youth, but I would like to be what my priest in Miami called a Florida teenager. You know, where we can have a safe place to remake myself. So that's why I came to Palm Coast. And then I found out that, it became a reality for me because the city of Palm Coast is on my mortgage.
Interesting.
Yes, they paid for me to come here.
I see.
So just like I was paid to work for the hospital in Melbourne, Florida, after I worked for a temporary agency, I was bought out like my friend Andy Semenick, the Philadelphia Phillies catcher that lived in Palm Bay, would scout. The hospital scouted me as a temporary employee and then paid the health force so that I was there. So I'm nun, nurse, and you can ask me a few more.
I will. And the next one is, are you a U.S. citizen?
Absolutely.
And always have been.
Absolutely. Born in America. My country 'tis of thee. And I'm the singing nun related to the one in The Sound of Music. So not only are we doing youth music, but we're not here to perform, because performance, as today's newspaper tells us about the politician gets and the situation that's coming out with human trafficking, music is not about pinup girls. Music is about the way our brain is trained, and that starts with doe, a deer, a female deer. We have to internalize the solfege, the patterns. Then our moral training, our ethical training can take those networks and form the environmental highways needed to be resilient, needed to be survivors, and needed to be loving to our neighbors.
Very interesting. The next question I'm going to ask, what makes you qualified to be mayor of Palm Coast? Top 3 qualifications.
Top 3 qualifications. I'm an emergency responder.
City sometimes has emergencies.
I'm a licensed nurse. And I'm trained as an educator that defends the democracy of our Republic of America.
Thank you. What would you say is the biggest issue facing the city of Palm Coast?
what to do next.
Thank you. One of the issues that would be brought before our new mayor is hiring the city manager, the next city manager. Do you think the city should enlist the services of a professional executive hiring consulting group, or take it upon themselves to figure out a process?
A, B, when you have the little check marks, I accept A, I accept B, both answers. And if we want to be the vision of what Palm Coast is created to be, we need to create independent volunteer study groups that come and offer a voice in this decision making. And that may take some time. So I think immediately the city manager should be what they've done. They've taken a woman who is in the ranks and says, okay, you're city manager, because they didn't follow their rules. Their rules were the city manager has 30 days to
vacate.
Vacate. Let's say he has 30 days to put his house in order. If you have to leave your house tomorrow, you don't do the same type of packing that you do if you have 30 days to plan to leave. And they said, adios. So, you made the bed. Let's make the bedroom. Let's make the house. Let's get the land appropriated for it to be on, and let's study the matter. If we want a Mednex, do we want to be another something that we consume or something that we create? Those are my issues as mayor, and those are my focus for Palm Coast. Do we want to just sell everything, or do we want to be a creative force?
Thank you. Do you have anybody in mind now that you feel would serve well as city manager?
I will confess, I made a little preliminary study on my own yesterday. I don't know my legal rights about it, but my ethical rights said, if you're going to be asked, you better look. Posmatrit. Mira. So, I made a telephone call to the Emergency Management Center, and I spoke to a gentleman who seemed to have the bio for something like this, but he knew his professional place. And he said, you should have this conversation with Jonathan Lord, because yesterday, given the fact that a man committed suicide in front of the courthouse, when he was called in to be sentenced for the pornography charge, and I had just within the last hour spoken to a member of the Tiger Bay Club, and we discussed the issue of suicide. I felt, given what I know and what I don't know, that we have a health crisis that is the unseen part of the unseen virus that we have to address. And that is an area that my daughter has her professional background in trauma. So I made the call to the emergency, to answer your question, I made the call to the emergency center, because why am I stepping up as mayor? My emergency radar is going off. I lived in Miami when Hurricane David came, and then Hurricane David didn't do the destruction, but I was at Alapata Middle School to be there when 3,000 plus elderly from Miami Beach needed to safely get back to their little beach nests over on Miami Beach. And I had to tell the National Guard, you're not leaving until every person is safely on this bus when the rains didn't stop. So we have to think in a similar manner, and why I feel I'm being called to be mayor, that coming out of the pandemic, we have to come out of the pandemic resilient. We have to come out of the pandemic better. We have to come out of the pandemic, and what I'm saying with our school, singing, so that we can make these brain networks that I've spoken to about, and that my daughter, who I'm so proud of, that has just graduated after visiting every possible expert in her field of trauma. She took 3 extra years of her college years at the doctoral level in Canada after first deciding to go to school in Canada, not because she was un-American, but in America, the chiropractic basics are 1,000-hour hands-on hours. She went to Canada where they start at 9,000 hours. Then she stayed in school until she could visit every expert in her field, spent a summer in Harvard, was in Europe, New York trips, so that she could understand the relationship between the brain, the gut, the vagus nerve, and she has learned in trauma care how to massage the amygdala and the hippocampus inside the brain so that we aren't drugged. Where did this come from? This came from a mommy that was a nurse that doesn't believe that you just take a pill to solve your problem. So when you ask me question A, question B, and I tell you both, and we need C, because we need to engage our citizens. The C is for citizens, because the city manager, ciudad, the city manager, is the chief. The mayor, I'm a face. God bless you. Thank you. Muchísimas gracias. Do it again. Let's work together. I am a face that if we're having trouble that the boys don't agree how to play the rules, well, then maybe the nun has to come and say, stop the fighting, and let's just get along now, time out, and let's study the situation, and let's get the job done. And that's what I'm here for. And if I have to use that part of my, what some people call my nunhood, well, so be it.
Thank you. One of the responsibilities, if elected mayor, is to be one of 5 council members to approve the budget, the annual budget operating our city. Personally, what was the largest budget that you've managed?
The largest budget I've managed is so large that it's incalculable. And that happened when, in my political training, I was asked to return to the country that a princess was exiled from. And when I got that call, I was the nurse in a hospital in Florida. And at that time, I had with me my 2 children. Okay.
The largest budget that you managed?
The largest budget that I managed was that I bought 2 $2 tickets for my children to go see Santa Claus at Holmes Regional Hospital in Melbourne, Florida. And I asked the hospital, what I call him, the Joseph in the biblical sense, who was going to be Santa Claus, can I get a good deal? Because I always like a deal. I wanted a good deal on a price for a pair of gloves, some medical gloves, and needles, because this was the height of the AIDS crisis in Romania, and that's where my princess friend was being asked to return to. And I couldn't go with her, though she wanted me to. She wasn't asked to come back to be princess. She was asked to come back to put her stamp on the hospital Christiana for children with AIDS. So the hospital Santa administrator gave me what we estimate to be in the area of $3 million when I asked for two $2 tickets for my children to see Santa Claus. Vote for Bacha for mayor, and I'll get you your money's worth, and you'll hear the rest of the story.
Great. Thank you. Part of your responsibility are managing our taxes.
Absolutely.
Do you feel our taxes here in Palm Coast are too high, too low, or just right?
Well, what was the value of your house this month?
I don't recall.
Well, the value of my house this month went up $10,000 from last month. And the month before, it went up 9,000 some dollars. And the month before, it went up 8,000 some dollars. Because within walking distance of my 26 Poppy Lane that is owned by me and in part by a soft lien from the city of Palm Coast that helped me get it to have my first ever owned house, I bought it at $89,000. And now it's valued at the last Zillow report is $22,000. So, what is my tax responsibility? Is my tax too low? Is my tax too high? We have to digest what has just happened to our real estate. And in your, I don't know if I want to call him your competitor or your protege, but there was an interesting cartoon in Flagler Live yesterday where they show this inflation issue of a cartoon blown up person. All those factors have to be taken into consideration when we manage a budget. Yes, I have some Cinderella-like ability when it comes to the prince, but I'm not saying that I can wave my magic wand and make inflation go away. We have to take all those factors into consideration so that we spend what is real money, because my ethnic background was papering using it for sanitary waste disposal in their currency. And I'm very well aware of how inflation can change a country.
Sure can. Some candidates pledge a line-by-line audit of the annual budget. If you identify, and how would you know if a number is in line or out of line for that item?
You mean like in line, out of line, like roller skates?
Is it a normal fee? Are we spending too much in this area? Are we not investing enough in this area?
It depends how much hot air you blow into it. Again, that has to be examined. I'm licensed as a professional nurse. I'm not licensed as a CPA. I do have an uncle in York, Pennsylvania, that got his CPA accreditation after he already was doing the work. And then they validated his schooling, and he did some more schooling, and okay. And he has been the auditor CPA for Congressman so-and-so and all in York, Pennsylvania. When I need to answer those kind of questions, I have to go to those kind of people that have the professional expertise so that we can weigh oranges to oranges and not sell you apples when we live in orange land.
Thank you. There were two recent transactions approved by our city council. Would you propose to defund Mednex? Or would you support it as is?
Are you the editor of Palm Coast Observer?
My title is publisher.
Publisher. All right. Well, my title in the last election was, what did they call me? Carol, Mother Elizabeth Bacha. That interview was by telephone in the first week of June. There are some internet tracks to my name if you put it in Bacha, B-A-C-H-A, and you'll find out that I spoke to the sports editor, Roy Boone, about Mednex. And that's why I wanted to be on the school board. Roy said, "What's Mednex?" Što ti hoćeš? What's going on with Mednex? Well, Mednex is me. Mednex is another one of my names. I am considered by FSU, Florida State University, in the category of being a medical ethnomusicologist. Okay? So that means that I'm trained in the medical profession to analyze what was, what is, and what we need in our Palm Coast. And yesterday, that conversation was with a woman who works for Bethune-Cookman College. And yes, Mednex needs to continue, but it needs to have BU and the values of Bethune-Cookman College, University, it's university. I went to Indiana IUP, and it's Indiana University. Daytona Community College is we have to get the latest names, but Mednex can only go forward, in my scholarly opinion, and in my moral and ethical views, if Bethune-Cookman has a seat at the table, which is going to be the leading seat, so that Palm Coast gets what Palm Coast needs from Mednex, and not something that we consume, so that we end up with a jail or a prison that we entitle memory care, what Palm Coast Parkway next to that new car wash that they've put up, that facility that's supposed to be for memory care or something looks like we're having a prison come to town. So we don't want that kind of Mednex. We want a Mednex that is rooted in our history, where we were the liberators from slavery, and that we are now the next generation of medical professionals, and I use my scientific network to bring in these folks that can help you with your brain issues that don't need drugs, as opposed to drugging you up and locking you in a cell and calling it memory care.
Thank you. Another budget item that was recently approved was over $5 million to invest in redevelopment and enhancements at the local tennis center. Would you support that, or would you support defunding that?
That's a loaded question, right out. That's one of those apple-orange questions. Because what I can understand that has been transmitted through good people like you in the news is that is an issue where funding of the pickleball is from a special fund. And so I would have to know more about that special fund. I will tell you that when I was in 4th grade, it was still a time when women were exempt from various sports. And when the call came over the loudspeaker, "Bring your sneakers for basketball," I showed up. I had no idea that they were not going to admit me. I brought my sneakers. My daddy took me to all the basketball games. I've been watching them. I wanted on the court. I wanted to play. Well, they didn't let me. So I became the box hockey champion. Box hockey is a little bit like pickleball. You don't have to take in as much area to do the badminton, volleyball things like with your teammates. So my mother got me a pair of gloves. The people had to stand in line, and they had to face me. And that's the same way I'm going to take this on. I've worked for the city of recreation, the city recreation departments of Orlando. I was the only musician for the city of Orlando being paid. We made a difference. And if you stick to my website and look at my pictures, when I get them up there and they're properly put up, okay, I don't look like this with the black on, but you'll see me with a vest with children. And you'll see me with America's favorite dad, the favorite father, Fred Rogers. I'm built in the Fred Mr. Rogers model, be your neighbor. And I knew Fred. I studied with his nephew, Dan Crozier, who was not quite so out there as I am. And I helped to make the first composer things at Rollins College and a lot of other pioneer things, which ended up bringing 8 to 9 clients out of comas. And that's how I got this free ride to Palm Coast that they gave me $30,000 to put down and move here. And I don't have to pay it back if I'm here through 2024. And I intend to say thank you.
That's your plan. That's great. Thank you. Next question is concerning housing in Palm Coast. The state chamber has predicted an additional 20 to 30,000 new residents in Palm Coast in the next 5 to 10 years.
I thought you were going to tell me in the next
5 to 10 minutes. Not quite that fast.
The clock is ticking and the trees are falling fast.
So the question is, are we facing a choice of urban sprawl or high density for the solution where to put these people?
I'd like to answer that question with a question. What is the name of the street that they wanted to close off?
Slow Way.
That's my answer.
Okay. Flagler County Sheriff's Office reports when we are compared to other communities our size, staffing levels of deputies is too low by an estimated 40 deputies. Are you satisfied with the current public safety and crime levels in Palm Coast?
No. And that's an issue of a word that we need to train our brain to understand. Acuity. When we grow, just like if I'm a nurse in the hospital, okay, I started my nursing career in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I was trained in Miami to go further. But when I was first trained and when I continued my training, acuity is a big issue in hospitals. If I'm an LPN in a nursing facility, I can be an LPN in a nursing facility and be given a job that I get on the telephone and I have to be there in 60 minutes. And I'm taking care of 60 people I never saw in my whole life. And I'm in charge. Acuity is when somebody doesn't show up and you get somebody else in. Acuity is when you need a job that takes, let's take it down, let's de-escalate a little bit, because the sheriffs has been doing a good job to de-escalate, right? When you get a crisis, you have to kind of take it back. I tell my piano students, you made a mistake? Laugh. Ha 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 ha. You get air to the brain. So I have to get back on this, because acuity is a matter of life and death. How many people we have on the road to respond to an emergency with our sheriff's office, which is county, and we have to get along, the city and the county, that's another issue. these numbers are not a political football. These numbers are your life or my life and our life together. And that has to be understood. And defunding is just not a word that we need to have.
Thank you.
Acuity.
Thank you. So we are at the end of our time, but I would like to offer you the opportunity to close us out. Anything you'd like to share with the voters?
This land is your land. This land is my land. From Palm Coast to Flagler Beach.
Thank you. Great job.
Let's have fun.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us today. Good luck in your efforts.
Thank you.
This special election podcast is brought to you by the Joe Mullins Companies. Live, shop, play.